Speaking at virtual and live events are an excellent way to connect with potential customers. But how do you get into public speaking and what's involved? Also, how would you know if you're the right type of person for public speaking? Sharing your expertise as well as that of your company lets you share value with potential customers to initiate a relationship. Giving value instead of asking for their attention is a far better way of doing things. But unless you have a godlike ability to naturally captivate audiences instinctively, you'll need to develop that skill. And that's what we'll be looking into. Now, as well as you potentially speaking at events, having professional speakers at events that you organise can add great depth and value. And in that case, how do you set about choosing the right one, and what should be a part of your consideration set? Joining me live on the show will be Jane Farnham to answer all of those questions and more. Hello, good morning. My name's James Rostance, and this is the 414 live and exclusive here to LinkedIn Live each and every Thursday morning. So the show is for you if you're a professional B2B marketer, whether you work in-house at a company or you work agency side, or indeed if you're a B2B marketing professional with hands-on sales and marketing input to your company's endeavors. So each week I get to speak with some of the greatest and most interesting minds in B2B marketing so that you can expand and enhance your professional knowledge each and every week. And this week, as I mentioned, we're going to be looking into the world of professional public speaking and the business benefits behind doing that. So joining me live from Deal in Kent, please welcome Jane Farnham. Jane, good morning.
Good morning, James.
Thank you so much for joining me. And I thought this would be a really cool episode because this is, again, something we've not covered on the show previously. But this is very much your field of expertise because, could you give the audience a bit of background about you? Because you're indeed a professional TV presenter and a whole load of other skills.
Yes. What's the phrase? Sort of a master of not very much, but jack of all trades. No, I started presenting when I finished my degree. In fact, on a local radio station in Cardiff, that's my hometown, called Red Dragon FM. And I started presenting. I presented for 25 years constantly. I never had to, do any other work. It was just so much available in terms of different types of presenting. So I really learnt my trade from the moment I started on the breakfast show at Red Dragon, and I was known as Pippa Horn because I was doing the traffic and travel. Nice. So that's where I started. Yeah. See what they did there? Very clever. So I did that for a couple of years. Then I did a bit of TV. Then I did a bit of continuity announcing. I went back to radio, and I did a lot of corporate presenting. So I did a couple of shows for the BBC, a science show for kids, and I did a property series because I'm an interior designer for the BBC, which was called Rec Already. So that went out. And, I think as I was getting older and I had the kids, as I've got 3 boys, I just found being a presenter quite exhausting because you're continually putting yourself up for work, sometimes getting knocked back and then having to deal with that and then moving forward, because largely it's not based on your ability to present. It's based on whether you fit the brief of that particular show or that particular job or that particular project. So sometimes it can simply come down to the colour of your hair. So I just sort of thought I was sick of chasing work. I knew that I could present. I was really good at it. I did some great projects. And I was doing more and more corporate work. I've got a client, a Japanese printing company that I've worked with now for the best part of 20 years. So I go to their trade shows and present on their presses and talk about the technology behind the presses. And I go to Japan and film their factories. I do their open houses in Dusseldorf, in Dusseldorf and in Utrecht. So it's really varied work. So I could be working and talking about a printing press manufacturer one week, and the next week I could be on shopping telly selling Maasai warrior figurines. So it really was a really varied career. So I just sort of thought, what can I do? And my business partner, who I've been working with for 20 years as well, sort of his background was in video and events. So we thought, oh, well, let's do something together. Because he was the same, if he didn't go out to work himself, he didn't earn any money. So what we wanted to do was to be able to create something whereby we're still very much in control of the business, but it wasn't centered upon us to earn the money. So we launched a video and events company based on his expertise, and then very quickly earned a bit of money and thought, well, what can we do to center on my expertise as a presenter and a voiceover artist, which I was still doing. And so we decided to launch Great British Voices and Great British Presenters. I'd obviously been working for 20 years at that stage, so I knew so many fantastic presenters and voiceover artists. So it was really quick and easy to populate those websites with absolutely professional talent. All of our voices are set up at home, so they all have home studios, which obviously is great in this climate. And our presenters, they're not people who just want to be a presenter. They're professional broadcasters from all walks of life. And then it was funny, we sat behind the desk for 2 years trying to grow this business. And it did grow, but it was too organic and too slow. So we thought we need to get out there. And we did a couple of trade shows, and we just kept getting asked for speakers. Wherever we went, it was, do you do speakers? Do you do speakers? Do you do speakers? And we thought, well, we'll add a speakers page to the website. And then we were like, nah, this is bigger than that. This warrants its own website. So that's when Great British Speakers was born. And it's been fantastic ever since. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride, really.
So how do you like to define what a professional public speaker is, and what do they do as well?
Well, I suppose quite simply, it's someone who gives talks in front of usually a live audience, and it can be for various reasons. Sometimes to educate, sometimes to entertain, and sometimes to influence. More and more, it's about influencing, as we know. And that's what they do. I mean, you have people who fall into speaking through their industry, and they become known as very good speakers, and they become experts in their field, and they get into speaking that way. Or you have people who are on the telly, and obviously their careers, and they're famous, and people want to hear from them and their experiences, and they tend to motivate and inspire because they've got maybe a story where they've overcome adversity. Or you just have simply people who are famous and people want to hear from, footballers and comedians and that sort of thing. So it's a really varied scope of people.
With you. But what about us mere mortals then, who aren't instant celebrities and talented footballers and the like? In that case, what would you say normally puts people off getting into public speaking?
Oh, I think quite simply nerves and confidence, a lack of experience in that area, unable to present themselves well, and particularly just getting completely nervous in front of a live audience. And I have to relate, I've been presenting for 25 years and I can talk for hours in front of a camera, as testament to the fact that I used to do a shopping tally 4-hour shifts non-stop.
That's got to be hard as well. Ooh.
It is really hard. You're shattered at the end of it. But in a way, you're talking to a camera, and it's one person behind that camera. So yes, you need to engage with your audience, but there's something quite quietly reassuring about being in a studio with just a few people that you know really well. Mm-hmm. The difference with speaking is that it's you in front of a live audience. I mean, we're going virtual, obviously, in the current climate, but that in itself is much more nerve-wracking. And I, for one, presenting and speaking are two completely separate things. That's really important. To be able to be a good speaker, you have to present yourself well, but to be a great speaker, you have to have content, you have to have confidence, and you have to be vulnerable. You're a room full of people who are listening to you and about your story. It's not about presenting someone else's material. So whenever I'm asked to speak, I'm absolutely petrified. I find it terrifying. So I can completely relate to why people get so scared. But the only way to get over that is through doing it and getting more experience of it and becoming more confident.
That's a really good point you made right there. But what just as a recap as well, what I really want for the audience to get from this first part is hopefully the motivation or well, no, motivation is the right word, actually. The motivation to really have a think about whether this should be something that they step up to because of the benefits, as I understand it, you can get from for you and your business. So when you say about getting practice right there, how do you do that? What would be, say, 3 essential elements? I love the number 3. What would be 3 good elements for you to actually get practice so that you can then get up and do that? Or would you literally have to stand in front of a bus and risk embarrassing yourself? Is there a process?
Oh, I think it's baby steps all the way. I mean, for a start, you should never go into speaking for the wrong reasons. You have to go in for the right reasons, which we can come back to. But yeah, it's a process. And obviously there's different people will have to start at different levels of the process. So you have some people who are natural communicators, naturally able to present themselves well. So those people will find it much more easy. But if you're starting from scratch, where the thought of talking to even a small room of people terrifies you, then there are things that you can do. There are associations that you can join. I mean, I've been to Toastmasters. I know there's the Association of Professional Speakers, and also going to networking events. With the groups, with Toastmasters, for example, there's people there who are really complete beginners and really have no experience with speaking, and they find it terrifying. And you go through the course and you build up your confidence in a small room, and you build up your story and you build up your talk to the point where you might never be a professional speaker, but you'd be able to hold your own in a professional environment. Because let's face it, being able to articulate yourself well benefits not just your professional life, but your personal life as well. And it can only enhance your business because obviously you are relating to people and they're finding you more credible. So yeah, I would definitely start, if you're starting from the very beginning, with the local group. Also join as many networking groups as you can. I remember my first experience of a networking event was in a hotel room. And I was invited along by someone, as you normally are with these events. Mm-hmm. And it was first thing in the morning. It was 6:30, and I rocked on up, and there was just a room full of local businesses. So there were landscaping businesses, there were builders, there were accountants, all sorts of different people from all walks of life. And you sit down at your table, and then you're asked to introduce yourself. And I was so nervous. Petrified, nervous to the point of shaking and my words not coming out correctly, and this is somebody with 20 years experience as a presenter. So, and the more you do that, and the more you do those events, and the more you communicate with people, the bolder you're going to become. So that's where I would start if you're going to start from the very, very beginning. And then, of course, moving on from that, once you've done your local groups and then your networking, you might then do bigger events, and you might then get asked to talk to a very small audience. But if you have the expertise that event needs, events are always looking for free speakers, so you can gain experience that way as well.
I really like the reassurance that taking baby steps is okay, and also the right thing to do. Yes. So with that in mind then, what would you say are the reasons and motivations? Let's look into that. The reasons and motivations for public speaking. What's your take on that?
Okay, so it has to be the right reasons. It should never be about ego. and never be about money, because those two things are never going to come to you straight away. Ego, obviously, thinking you've got something interesting to say is different from actually having something to say, for one. So ego, put that to one side. Money, you're only going to earn money on the speaking circuit after a lot of experience and a lot of refinement. So, you can put that to one side. So I think in general, being able to present yourself and talk is a vital tool in any business and any walk of life, as we said, professionally and personally. It's really important. So there's obvious gains for any business person. Being able to talk to an audience and deliver content is going to make you much more credible, being able to articulate yourself in certain situations. All of this, forget speaking for a moment. All of this is really important. And before you get up on stage, those are the things you really need to address. If you think about business, government, and education, all of the people that you hear from in those areas are generally good speakers. Yeah. And if they're not good speakers, they're probably not very high up in their game. So you become credible. The spoken word is much more powerful than the written word. That's the other point to remember. And if you sort of then add the right speaker into the mix, it becomes even more powerful and it resonates with more people. And then you and I were discussing this. It's a fantastic, and I know you broached upon it in your introduction. It's a great top of funnel activity. So, a sales funnel. I understand what a sales funnel is. You might want to explain this a little bit better than I can. But it's your first point of contact with a potential customer. So if you're at an industry event, you've been invited to talk. You're going to have lots of people within that industry, lots of potential customers listening to you, and it's your first point of engagement with them, and you're offering them some advice. So therefore, you're automatically going to be credible. Then, of course, once they have listened to you, they might then follow you on your social media, on your LinkedIn, look at your website. And at that point, of course, you can offer them free content. So it's a journey, and it's a really important journey to be out and look, become an expert in your field. And then, of course, after the free content, you can offer paid content. But essentially, it's just brilliant for your business to be able to put yourself in front of people.
I can see, that's super powerful. And particularly now where it's gone more towards online for the time being, if you can be then getting exposure out and about other than your own social channels, that I can see, huge benefit for your top of funnel activities.
Yeah, and every single company or industry or event or trade show that you make contact with, I was told this a couple of weeks ago, just backlinking, it's all about sort of creating, traffic for your website. So the more you're out there, the more aware people will become of you and your business, and the more credible you will become. I think there's something, James, I'm not sure, you probably know more about this than I, but there's something that when people Google or search for something on the internet, they search and your business might come up, and they go, oh, I haven't used those before, and they'll go back to what they know, and the second time they'll go, oh, they're still about, and it's like the third or fourth time they'll see, if you're there organically, that's building their confidence to then click on you to actually make contact with you. So and that can come about through speaking.
Yes, that's a good point as well about Google searches, because there's that adage, isn't there? You are who Google says you are, which is scary in one sense.
More and more these days, I think.
Hugely, yeah. But equally, I can very much appreciate that point. If when a potential customer does a Google search on you in some capacity, if they see you out there doing your thing on a stage or in front of a camera in some way, shape or form, that then's got to surely really add credibility to you and your status as a professional. What's your take on that?
Absolutely. It's really valuable, really valuable. I think I can't underestimate it enough. But I know it's definitely something for, business. I just think in general, I can't say how important it is to be able to talk and articulate and allow people to talk and give them the, it's, but in business more so, because obviously you want to create contact with people and you want to build leads, and more and more we have to veer away from direct marketing and being in people's faces. So you have to be able to talk about what you do best, and also give people tools about how they can be the best they can be, and how they, free information about if they want to do what you're doing, then obviously they need to do this.
Yes, delivering value, which is
adding
hugely,
value. Yeah, absolutely.
The way things are going. Talking of value, nice link, here we go. If you're watching right now and you would like to put a question to Jane about presenting, how to get into it, what's involved, any kind of question around that, or indeed what the traffic and travel right now is in Cardiff. There we go.
The A470 is a bit jammed, I think.
Is it?
I don't know. It used to be a long time ago.
Yes, with the eye in the sky, traffic and travel reports. The helicopter. Wow. 90s radio, can't beat that. Right.
Yeah.
If you have a question you would like to put to Jane, please do put it in the comments section now, and we will get that sorted this morning for you. Right. Now, I never like to focus on negatives. I'll make that nicely clear. But I am mindful that there are barriers to getting involved in any new endeavor. So approaching this from a positive point, what are the barriers that a person would need to overcome, because you know that they will likely come up against this?
Well, first, as we spoke about earlier, is confidence,
Yes.
and that can only come with putting yourself out there and say yes to everything. I'll come back to that later. But I think the most important, probably the most obvious barrier is time. If you're an entrepreneur or you're a business person, you're generally very busy. I run 3 different websites. I've got 3 kids. I run the house. I am very time restricted. So you have to delegate. You have to learn to delegate if you want to put yourself out there. And it's really important to put yourself out there. I can't emphasize it enough. When we started this business sort of about 10 years ago, we were sitting behind a desk waiting for the phone to ring and sending, emailing people, or waiting for the emails to come in. And it was only when we went out and did our first trade show that we realized that people buy into people. They don't buy into a website. They don't buy into, a brochure. They buy into you. So when they're passing on the trade stand and you're chatting to them, and they're like, oh yeah, okay. So, we didn't offer speakers, which is what 90% of our inquiries was, but we were like, well, we can get hold of them. And then we quickly adapted the business because we were a small business. We were able to do that. And then, of course, as the business grows, it's like, well, I'm spending all this time doing my accounts. I need to delegate. So, I've got a bookkeeper in, you get a cleaner in. Haven't got one at the moment, but, you get a cleaner in. So that frees up more time. You get an assistant in to do, little bits and pieces. And when you've got that little bit in place, that then frees you up to focus on how to grow your business. And that means networking. That means getting out there. And that means, it's creating time in order to allow you to network and speak.
Perfect. And of course, as per your earlier point, about serving as a really solid top of funnel activity to initiate contact. Okay.
Yeah, it's paramount. It's absolutely paramount. You get out there, you meet people, and that is so much more benefit to your business than sitting behind a desk doing accounts and fielding emails, because your business. It's all about, my business partner and I are learning this all the time. We sit there and go, right, okay, we need to add value to the business. We're not adding value to the business while we're sitting here answering emails. I think we're a small boutique bureau, and I think people buy into that, and we always try to be front of house and have great customer service. But equally, that's really easy to train other people to do. But, when you're out and about, it needs to be you that's visible.
100%. Well, in that case, so hopefully everyone watching will be on board with the business benefits of doing this, but actionable steps now to actually get doing this. Now, you mentioned earlier about Toastmasters. I've come across them before, but could you explain what they do, who they are, and why then in that case they might be a good route to get good at speaking.
So Toastmasters is just one of many organisations that you can join. You'll probably find another one local to you. I don't know huge amounts about Toastmasters. I went to 3 or 4 meetings, I think. It's free. You go along, you chat. There's the Association of Professional Speakers as well. There's many others. But I think the thing with the Toastmasters and the APS is that it's free. You can go along for free. You don't have to sign up. And I think you can go along, as often as you want to until you're ready to join and make that next step. So again, it's building your confidence, and you're seeing people who are also not fantastic speakers in a room, growing during those meetings, and you kind of go, oh, okay, if I put myself into this, I could possibly make that same progression. So yeah, they have a course. You'd have to have a look on their website to find out more and look at the costs. But like I say, have a look at anything that's available in terms of networking or speaking local to you, because you don't want to have to get on a train for a couple of hours to do these things, because of course we're all restricted by time. But that would be the first suggestion. But the most important thing for me is just saying yes to any opportunity that arises where you're required to talk in a group or to a group, because it's all about experience and gaining confidence. So I was asked to speak at a ladies' lunch, I think this year, and I was like, well, why do they want to hear from me? What have I got to say? I don't. And they were like, oh, no, just come along. It's really relaxed. And I get there and there's this big room of women all sitting having lunch. I'm thinking, oh, my goodness. And the other speaker looked like she was on the professional circuit. And I was like thinking, what am I going to talk about? So I just spent some time, working out what I was going to talk about. Because they wanted me to talk for a good half an hour. So I thought I'd talk about my journey, where I started, and how I've got where I've got to, and then the hurdles and the obstacles that I've overcome along the way, the changes that we've made to the business, and where we're at right now. I've also been through a divorce in the last sort of 5 years, so that all these things that all these women in the room could resonate with. So it was thinking about that story. And then I wrote it down, and this is what I would suggest to anybody, because everybody's got a story to tell. But this is a story. This isn't an industry, expert. So if you were in a particular industry, you would literally work out a talk, and you'd write it down. It's like writing an essay. You write it down, you reread it, you read it again, you edit, you add, you highlight, you tweak, and you then practice in front of the mirror. I kid you not. You have to present it to yourself in front of a mirror, stand there over and over. Some lines will come out really easy, others won't. Get rid of those lines. Add a humorous element if you can at some point to make it more relatable. Make it as engaging as you possibly can and as relevant to the audience that you're talking to. And once you've got a base speech, you can adapt that to any events that you get invited to talk at, but do practice. Practice makes perfect. That's such so obvious. It's stating the bleeding obvious with speaking most of the time. It's just hard work and getting out there and being real. You also do need those presenting abilities, which you can learn when you do Toastmasters or whatnot. But you need to be clear. You need to be concise. You need to make eye contact with the room, talk around the room. You don't look up, you don't look down. You need to slow down. You need to emphasize, intonate, articulate, be honest, be real, be you, and nobody can ask for more.
Wow, that was a powerful series of insights there back to back. This is really cool. Normally, by the way, I vision mix the show myself, so when I'm not talking with you, my hand is pressing buttons. But the whole time then, that was all on you, because of this is golden. This is golden. Right. You know what came to me right there as you were explaining that is it was almost like a permission to get good at one thing. in that you were advocating right there, and this is how I interpreted it, was that you build a talk, one thing, and as opposed to try and perhaps do lots of things, just getting good at this one thing. And I imagine it's rather like cooking. Now, I've got a dish that I do particularly well. It's duck.
Just the one?
Yes, that's my thing.
Stick at what you're good at, James?
Yeah, but
it's exactly that.
it's the same thing, is it?
You can't be all things to all people. You can't talk about what you don't know. You can't. People, if you try to be something you're not, it's not going to work. You have to be you. You have to be real. It has to be honest, and it has to be something you have experience of. Because otherwise, anybody could get up and do it. What makes you different? What do you know about? It has to be relevant. And this is why ego can't come into it at any level, because it just gets in the way. People, if you happen to be fantastically charismatic as well, that's a bonus. But if you're giving people an insight into something that they're interested in, then they will listen to you. And if you articulate well and emphasize well and smile and make eye contact, then they're more likely to engage with you.
Perfect. I would love it if this now inspires viewers and listeners to get up and do this one thing now. So to work on one story for the time being, and then two, go along to one of these local free meetings and associations to start that.
There's so many of them out there. There's just,
really?
In every community, and, just do you and spend time, on something. If you something you want to do, spend time and allocate time to it, but don't beat yourself up and say, I'm going to be on the speaking circuit in a year's time, because you're going to, it's not going to happen.
It takes at least 14 months to do that, does it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it can if you did it, if you were able to create those opportunities, you can do it in less time, and you have a natural ability to communicate. But if you're starting from scratch, where you can't even walk into a room, the thought of doing a TED talk is just going to fill you with horror.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, that's the beginning steps that I guess nicely covered. So looking ahead, maybe further down the line then, eventually people do become professional speakers. So let's talk about those for a moment now. So with professional public speakers, why do people end up booking them? And this, I guess, is for obviously for events.
So professional speakers, I think we broached on it a little bit at the beginning. So they can come into speaking from all walks of life. So they could come into speaking through their activity on the telly, or some of my speakers, they've been working in the city, or they've been doing a career for so long. They've done a few talks. I've got one fantastic speaker who basically was just a bit fed up with the corporate world, decided to buy a boat with his wife. They traveled the world, but not just with his wife, but with 3 children in tow. So they homeschooled on the boat. They toured the world, and the youngest was 18 months on a sailboat. I mean, so he's now got this, he's now a professional speaker. So he does consulting, and he talks about what his professional background is, but how he's not going to draw on experiences from that year of his life. That makes it instantly engaging, because he's got these real life experiences that you need in the workplace. But he's got an interesting story to tell. So they come at it from all walks of life. That's the important thing. But why people book them for events? Sometimes it's just as simple as to guarantee bums on seats, to increase ticket sales. That can sometimes be one reason. If it's a corporate event rather than commercial, then it tends to be one of two things. It tends to be to reward their staff, and in which case you would choose something lighthearted, maybe a raconteur, a comedian, an entertainer, or maybe somebody, a famous person who, if you've got a room full of young people who were sporty, you might choose a sports person, for example. So it sometimes can be about reward. And sometimes you might want to hear a motivational story. And also it can sometimes be to give people, to add value to the event, and to give your staff tools to enhance their business acumen. So it could be somebody from the industry who's imparting knowledge. So yeah, it can be a variety of reasons why you decide to have a speaker, but some of the stories that you can hear will really motivate and empower people. Some of the adversity stories that I've heard, they're just amazing. And if you even somebody like who's my favorite speaker at the moment? Eddie the Eagle. He's brilliant.
Really?
He's absolutely engaging. He's funny. He just can talk about his experience. I mean, what he did and what he achieved was just phenomenal, really. He's had a movie written about him. There's meant to be a West End show being written about him at the moment, because he's quite an empowering individual. And you can choose all manner of a speaker. There's so much variety out there, which I love. No two speakers are the same.
Got it. So bums on seats and motivation. The two drivers.
Yeah, or just to
That's
reward.
Solid.
Sometimes just to reward. It's like if you've had a busy 4-day conference and you think your staff need a bit of light relief, then you might choose Lenny Henry to come along, or a raconteur like Giles Brandreth to give an after-dinner talk at the end of at the end of the day or the end of the dinner. Just to kind of make people go, oh, and breathe.
So what would be, here we go. So what would be your professional advice on how to actually set about choosing a speaker to speak at your event?
Okay, so the first thing is to decide what you want the speaker for. Do you want them to reward? In which case you go down a different route. You probably go down an entertaining route. Or do you want to motivate and give and add value to your event? If you want bums on seats, that's different again, because obviously you're going to go for profile based on the industry that you're in. You need to decide which of those things you're trying to achieve at that particular event. Then you need to think about your audience. Who are they? Because I can supply, 20 speakers based on a brief, maybe more, maybe less. But not all of them are going to be able to talk to the audience in the room. So, for example, a speaker who engages with a young, diverse audience, say some students, may not engage naturally with a room full of professionals. So you need to think about who your audience is, what the demographic is, and who's going to best engage with those. And then the other really important point is your budget. I love the fact that on the speaking circuit, your budget pretty much sets the benchmark. And it's a good place to start. It's a good point about, being honest with yourself. Look, what do we ideally want to spend on this? Let's have a look at the budget. What do we want to spend? We want to spend 3, 5, 10, 15K. Okay, let's say we want to spend 10. We could probably go up to 15 for the right person. And then that gives you the ability to look at all different types of speakers at different value price points. And then once you have your budget, your audience, and you know what you're trying to achieve, you can go onto a search engine and start searching. But if you do it that way, then obviously just make sure that you do your due diligence and make sure that you check the testimonials. You actually send an email to the person that's telling you that they're fantastic. You make contact with them and and get some feedback on the speaker whose speaker's website that you're on. Alternatively, you can go to a bureau like mine and allow them to do the work, because it is quite time consuming. Plus, it sounds bonkers, but a bureau can sometimes save you money. And the reason for that is because if a lot of corporate clients, say a big city firm, went direct to a speaker, then that speaker is going to give you their top rate, because they're going to ask who you are. They're going to say, right, ka-ching. This is my top rate. Whereas a speaker bureau will know what that speaker normally prices out for, and also what they will reduce down to. So they can actually save you a bit of money as well, and particularly time. And just, they can impart an insight, and, after doing it for a little while and then getting feedback from our customers and our clients, we understand which speakers work best in certain, audiences and certain events. So, it's entirely up to you how you do it, but those are the top tips I would suggest.
Nice. When describing that as well, in the back of my mind is the desire to avoid a real life situation where you might have an actual David Brent come and speak at your event.
Yeah, that's why you need to check testimonials. It's really important.
That's what made me think of that. Yes. So actually, that's an interesting idea. So actually checking testimonials of the speakers of their previous engagements to see how they've actually gone. Right.
If they've got a testimonial on their website, if you're doing this directly, and if you're a small business, you might decide to go down that route. But it is time consuming. If you do that, say you get 5 speakers that you really, really like, you check their rates, and if it fits within your budget, and you might narrow that down to 3. And then, they will have testimonials and they will have company names. So, and the name of the person who wrote it. So just double check it. You've got nothing to lose but you've got everything to lose if a David Brent turns up and gets it wrong. Your whole event is ruined, because that's all they're going to remember.
Yes. I just realised as well that isn't The Office, it's about 20 years old now. God, that's kind of depressing in a way. Yeah. And I'm thinking...
Stop!
I know, right? There's a chance, is there, that might be someone listening and viewing might not know what The Office is. If that is, I'm leaving now.
Oh, no. I think Ricky Gervais supersedes The Office these days.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to... Blimey, I should ask you now about the future, about where all this is heading. So, what do you... Yeah.
I just shuddered.
Was it?
No, don't read it. I'm joking.
Where do you see speaking and public speaking going in the future with everything that's happened this year?
Well, I think... in light of the fact that there's still no clear direction, government guidelines regarding events, which I think the industry was hoping for before now. We had our fingers crossed that we'd be able to get back to work before Christmas, this side of Christmas. Now that's looking less likely. Mm-hmm. So I think, we've already been doing virtual events. So I think people will look into doing more creative virtual events, for sure. I had a chat with the client yesterday, and they were thinking maybe of doing what they called a hybrid event. And I love that. I said, I'm nicking that. That is brilliant. Mm-hmm. So partly physical, but then they will bring certain people in to the event, to maybe a socially distanced event, virtually. So there's that way. And then, of course, you'd be able to do the speaker. Maybe I find that speaking engagements virtually, they're not quite as powerful. They, particularly if they're sitting at a desk as I am now, and they are on a Zoom call or Microsoft Teams or whatever, Skype, something's lost because the lighting, the sound, your internet connection, these things can all, play up during a virtual event. However, if you created a virtual offering that was filmed in a studio with lighting, a bit like a TED Talk, in that image, and that was played on a big screen, that could be really powerful. So there's really interesting ways of doing it, but I just don't think you can, you can't underestimate the power of a person in a room talking to people and inspiring them. And I'm hoping, the industry is already picking up. We've got Black History Month coming up. I think we're already getting a lot of inquiries for the new year. I think a lot of the events that were had been rescheduled for October, November have been pushed back again to spring. And I'm really hoping that changes, that we can get some bookings in before Christmas. But obviously, everybody has to follow the rules.
I do really like the idea of the hybrid event there.
I know. Isn't it great?
Yes.
I did say I was nicking it.
It's done. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's now a thing.
So hybrid events tied in with greater production values. I can 100% see that's a thing as well. Back in March, April, with people hamming it on Zoom calls in badly lit rooms, understandable. But now we've all grown up a bit, and we've had time to play with it, haven't we?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about if you are using a speaker, I mean, because I've had companies where we've provided speakers just really to G up the staff who are all based at home and they're not seeing each other, and there's not that sort of office, environment going on at the moment. So they booked a few of my speakers just to, completely random subjects. They booked an adventurer, the Stig, and then somebody who talks about natural health and anxiety and that sort of thing. So, and they went down really well because they had an audience that that logged in to view. But I find those events work much better when it's a Q&A as opposed to one long monologue, because I think there needs to be an interaction. Because otherwise you could lose your audience, particularly with the lack of lighting and the lack of, there's nothing dynamic going on really when somebody's sitting and talking. So I think more of a Q&A session works best when thinking about virtual speaking engagements.
Nice. Okay, well, in that case, as a summary for all of this, what would you like the audience to have as a key takeaway from professional public speaking? And as well as getting professional public speakers?
Well, I suppose the first one is just, I'm a great believer in nothing happens overnight, and hard work pays off. So if you really want to get on the platform and get yourself out there, then it's only you holding yourself up. You need to put yourself out there and say yes to all and explore all opportunities. It's nothing really comes to you these days. You have to put yourself out there. So get out, and every single thing that you do, you'll learn something, and it might be a process of elimination. You're going to go, oh no, that's not for me. But this is for me. So you'll learn more about yourself during the whole process. And then with regards to, and it just comes from experience and getting out on the circuit, creating really interesting, engaging content as far as, if you want to speak, that's the crux of the matter, and learning how to present yourself. In terms of booking, you just have to, it's thinking about what you want your audience to take away, what your budget is, and who your audience is. And those three things should set you on the right path to finding the right speaker.
Perfect. Jane, thank you ever so much for joining me on the show today. This has been a rich and varied topic of conversation. Yeah, no, seriously, it's been really good. Thank you. And I really do hope you, the viewer and listener, have got something solid from this. Yes, Jane, live from Deal in Kent. Thank you so much for joining this morning.
You're more than welcome. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you, James.
You're a star. Thank you very much. And if you've enjoyed watching, then please do, if you haven't already subscribed now, then web address on screen, www.the414.net for all subscription options and to watch previous episodes. So this has been the 414. It's for you each and every week for you to expand and enhance your professional knowledge as a B2B marketer, because I get to speak with some of the greatest and most interesting minds in B2B marketing. And that's what we do every Thursday, normally in the morning, or if the guest schedules requires it, Thursday afternoon or Friday. Well, there we go. My name's James Rostance. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you here same time next week.